Representative Jim Jordan launched into an intense and methodical line of questioning as he confronted Special Counsel Jack Smith during a high-stakes congressional hearing that quickly escalated into a sharp and combative exchange. What unfolded was widely described as a brutal grilling, not because of raised voices, but because of Jordan's relentless pace, repeated follow-ups, and refusal to let answers drift into generalities. He pressed Smith on the credibility of key January 6 testimony, particularly surrounding claims that had drawn national attention, demanding clarity on whether certain allegations had been independently verified or were based on secondhand accounts. Jordan repeatedly asked for direct yes or no responses, cutting in when he felt the answers lacked precision, and underscored what he framed as weaknesses in the evidentiary foundation of parts of the investigation. Throughout the exchange, Jordan sought to portray the special counsel's team as willing to rely on testimony that could face serious scrutiny in a courtroom setting, especially if challenged as hearsay. He cited deposition statements and public reporting to question whether prosecutors themselves had doubts about certain witnesses. Smith, maintaining a controlled and measured demeanor, responded that his office conducted an independent and comprehensive review of evidence, and that decisions regarding witnesses had not been finalized outside the broader prosecutorial process. He emphasized that investigative judgments are guided by legal standards, not political considerations. The confrontation ultimately reflected more than a dispute over one witness. It highlighted the deep partisan divide surrounding the January 6th investigation and the broader Trump-related cases. Jordan framed his questioning as an effort to expose potential overreach or inconsistency within the Department of Justice, while Smith positioned his office as operating within established legal norms. The exchange encapsulated the ongoing institutional tension between congressional oversight and prosecutorial independence in one of the most politically charged investigations in recent American history.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Smith, is Cassidy Hutchinson a liar? She was their star witness, January 6th committee, their star witness in one of those staged and choreographed hearings they paid the former president of ABC News to put together. She was, in fact, the only witness at this special prime-time hearing, Tuesday, June 28th, 2022, 8 o'clock in the evening, and she told some stories. I mean, these were some stories. She talked about President lunged across the back seat, grabbed the steering wheel, tried to drive the car to the Capitol. And I just want to know, you think she was lying?
Chairman Jordan, my assessment of that particular issue is that with respect to the testimony about the president lunging towards the driver, my recollection of her testimony about that is that it was secondhand. She had said she'd heard that from somebody.
You familiar with the name Tony Ornato?
I'm sorry, sir?
You familiar with the name Tony Ornato?
Yes.
White House Deputy Chief of Operations, Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, right? You remember what he said about it?
As I sit here right now, I do not.
Yeah, he said it didn't happen. How about Bobby Engel? You familiar with that name?
Yes, I am.
Secret Service agent who was actually in the car that day. You know what he said? He said it didn't happen. And they both said the first time they ever heard this story was when Ms. Hutchinson testified in the primetime hearing as their star witness of the January 6th committee. By the way, did you ever confirm her testimony about this particular incident?
We conducted, as I said before, our own independent investigation of all aspects of the case that we thought was relevant. We, attorneys from my office.
Did you ever confirm it? That's a simple question.
Well, we interviewed her, I should say, attorneys in my office before.
Did you ever confirm the president leaping across the seat, grabbing the steering wheel, this whole concoction she brought up in the January 6th hearing? Did you ever confirm that?
Right. We interviewed another firsthand witness who was in the car who did not confirm that had happened, but also
in your deposition to the committee last month, Mr. Smith, you said this: my recollection with Ms. Hutchinson was a number of the things that she gave evidence on were secondhand hearsay. You remember making that statement to us last month in the deposition?
I did, and I was referring particularly to what we're talking about now.
Yeah, and you also said Ms. Hutchinson, regarding this particular claim, was a second or even third-hand witness. We asked you, if you were a defense attorney, how would you handle cross-examining her if she was on the witness stand? And you said, if I were a defense attorney and Ms. Hutchinson were a witness, the first thing I would do was seek to preclude her testimony because it was hearsay. You remember saying all that?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
That's correct, right? Were you going to put her on the witness stand if you ever got to trial?
We had not made final determinations as to who we were going to call as a witness. We had a large...
You were still considering her?
We had a large choice of witnesses in this case.
Are you familiar what Washington Post reporters Carol Leonnig and Aaron Davis said in their book? They did this book, 300-some pages book on chronicling the whole investigation at the Justice Department. And here's what they said on page 310. They said, Jack Smith had wondered whether some of Hutchinson's claims might be relied upon at trial. Still, at one point, Smith told the elections team he wasn't ready to give up on Hutchinson's account. Ultimately, however, Trump administration officials uniformly, fiercely disputed her accounts under oath. Prosecutors on your team told Smith they wouldn't want to use Hutchinson as a witness in court, and Smith agreed. Are Carol Leonnig and Aaron Davis, who wrote this, are they lying?
My recollection is that I certainly had not made any final determinations about who we were going to call.
And that's the point. That is the point. The fact that they used her in a primetime hearing and you won't rule out using her, or didn't rule out using her, putting her on the witness stand when everybody knows she wasn't telling the truth, that says it all. That's the degree the left and Democrats were willing to go to get President Trump, putting on the witness stand someone everybody knows is making it up. Everybody knows that. And you were willing to do it. By the way, you know how many times Cassidy Hutchinson was mentioned in their report, the January 6th report? Any idea, Mr. Smith?
I do not.
185 times. Someone that the whole country knows wasn't telling the truth, and you were still considering putting her on the witness stand because you had to get President Trump. And everybody can see that. We better take a...
Chairman Jim Jordan aggressively questioned Special Counsel Jack Smith over the credibility of former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson, zeroing in on her widely publicized January 6 testimony about President Trump allegedly lunging toward a Secret Service driver and grabbing the steering wheel. Jordan repeatedly pressed Smith on whether Hutchinson was lying, emphasizing that her account was secondhand and contrasting it with reported denials from Tony Ornato and Bobby Engel, who were said to dispute the incident. Smith acknowledged that Hutchinson's description of the steering wheel episode was based on what she had heard from others and confirmed that another first-hand witness interviewed by his office did not corroborate that claim. Referring to prior deposition remarks, Smith reiterated that portions of Hutchinson's testimony amounted to second or third-hand hearsay and agreed that, from a defense perspective, such testimony would likely face challenges in court. However, he maintained that prosecutorial decisions about potential trial witnesses had not been finalized and were part of a broader, independent review of evidence. Jordan also cited reporting from Washington Post journalists Carol Leonnig and Aaron Davis suggesting prosecutors were hesitant to rely on Hutchinson at trial, using that to argue that her testimony should not have been elevated in earlier proceedings. The exchange underscored sharp partisan tensions over the January 6th investigation, with Jordan portraying Hutchinson's testimony as unreliable and politically amplified, while Smith defended his office's investigative process and discretion.